Good morning. Good morning. Happy Wednesday. Happy hump day. Wednesday. Wow, time is really ticking. I just feel like this month is just flying already. But today is Wednesday, January 18th, 2023. And on behalf of Purpose Journey Counseling, I want to say good morning to you. It is 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we are live. Whether you are catching us later in the day, later in the week, later in the month, later in the year, or you're on with us at 7 a.m., we want to say good morning to you and welcome to Purpose Journey Counseling, LLC, Reloaded. We're reloaded in 2023. We are grateful to be here, and we are just, trucking along this month. So thank you so much for joining us. My name is Dr. Natatu North, and I am the owner and therapist of Purpose Journey Counseling, LLC, located in Cincinnati, Ohio. And again, it is 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. And the YouTube link for this broadcast is posted on Instagram. So whatever platform you're watching us on, we just ask that you please like this video, like our pages. Please follow us on social media, whichever platform you prefer. But we do ask that everyone just take a few moments to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And please share this video, share other videos that we've, posted since we've been doing these messages since July of 2022. And we were doing Monday through Friday. So there's tons of different things. We have a monthly podcast as well. So we just ask, that you just go in there and share, and then let's interact and engage in the comment section to encourage one another. So before we get into our message for today, we always share a National Suicide Prevention Hotline number. Store this number in your phone, 1-800-273-8255. The number is 24/7. Save it. Just save it. Save it in your phone. That way it's available for whomever you encounter, or if you need it yourself. And then there's also the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. That number is 988. You can also text that number as well. So again, please save these numbers in your phone so that they are readily available if ever needed. So let's make sure that we have the tools that we need. So thank you so much for doing that. Now, it is Wednesday, hump day. And on Wednesday, we have Wednesday wisdom. So today I want to share, I've said this before, I love quotes, especially when they're really simple, really one-liner quotes, that we can easily remember and recollect when we need to. I want to share something that my late father used to say to me and my siblings and other family, but especially me and my siblings. And it's something that he used to say every time, like whether he was, like when I was younger, if he was dropping me off at school, before I got out the car, he would say it to me and one of my best friends that we would get out the car together, or he would say it before we got off the phone. It was just something constant, to the point that my sister even got hats made. Maybe one day I have to wear that hat on here. Can't wear with this hairstyle, but hats made with this quote on it. But I wanted to share it with you this morning because it is a very, very wise statement. And it is: pray and think before you speak, write, or do anything. Pray and think before you speak, write, or do anything. And it's funny because I remember he used to say, think before you speak, write, or do anything. And then after a while, he added pray to that. And I'm like, wow, yeah, because even before we think, sometimes we need to pray that God, helps us in our thought processes. So even the things that we're thinking about are pleasing to him, and that we still use our thought processes to help us make great decisions. So, say like, think about it before you do it. Like, think about it first. Don't just react. You have to be able to respond. Praying allows us to access God, so that we're not relying on our own abilities to mess up situations, essentially, or, to think about whether or not we might be able to have the right response in a situation. That allows us to tap into Jesus and not our own abilities. So that way we're already starting off on the right track, because it gives God a chance to speak before we speak. I think it's awesome. And then thinking before we open up our mouths, before we write something or we do anything. How much, some of us can be overthinkers. I get that. I can attest to that at times, but sometimes we just really don't think. And it's hard to do that when we have to do things on the fly. Sometimes, especially like in an interview, it's like, oh, they're asking me this question. I have to answer this question right now. But you actually know, even in an interview, it's okay to take a little pause before you answer a question. It actually is. And actually, when we take a pause before we actually speak or before we do anything, it gives us a chance to really try to gather our thoughts. And it's hard, like I say, it can be difficult to make decisions on a spot or in the moment. But when you take a moment to pray, seek God's wisdom, not just relying on yours, you're thinking, you're praying and you think, okay, what did God say? You're praying and you're thinking, what would God want me to do? You can say WWJD, what would Jesus do? When you're asking these questions to yourself, it's like, okay, now I feel like as I speak or as I write this thing or as I actually do something now, I've actually tapped into some wisdom, God's wisdom. Again, the wisdom of God, that's the wisdom we want, the wisdom of God, before we're actually doing something. Because let's face it, we talk about, the consequence, you're going to get this consequence, but there are actually natural consequences for everything. Good, whether good or bad. If you pay your bills on time, your stuff will be on. You'll have the things that you need. If you pay your car note, you'll have your car. If you pay your rent or your mortgage, you have a place to live. You pay your electric bill, your water bill, you'll have the utilities to use. Those are good consequences. But if you students, any level of student, if you don't study or if you don't do your work or you don't go to class, you probably won't do very well. You may not pass. You might get kicked out of school. There's a lot of different consequences that come along with that. If you are very negative in your communication with other people, you might lose some people in your life. There are consequences for everything. So as you're praying and you're thinking before you act, before you speak, before you're writing something, as you're doing those things, it at least puts you in a better position to be able to reap some of those good consequences. It puts you at least in a better position. But when we just react, we don't think about anything. We just do it. Because we're just doing it. Oh, we're just gonna, and we're just kind of, living this life, by, without much thought, without much intention in what we do, or just even with malicious intent, because sometimes it's malicious intent, or I got to get mine, you better get yours, and I'm just selfish and I'm thinking about me. There's going to be consequences for that. And sometimes we act surprised when things happen in our lives, but sometimes it's because of some of the decisions we've made. Some stuff doesn't just happen to you. Take that in. Some stuff doesn't just happen to us. Oh, well, that just happened. There's a lot of things that happen in life you have no control over. That is true. It's a true statement. But not everything that happens to us just happened. Some stuff has happened because of the decisions that we've made, or the lack of prayer, or the lack of thought into our actions, therefore causing some of those bad consequences or negative consequences. Now we've got to reap the negative consequences of our poor choices. Okay? So now everything we do, once it's done, is done. Once you say or do it, you cannot take it back. You can apologize. You can, try to make amends. And I'm not saying that apologies aren't necessary or amends aren't necessary. No, they're necessary. But once you do it, you can't take it back. It's been done. So we talk about being intentional every time we're together. We have to be so intentional and so careful about what we say and what we do, because what we say and what we do impacts other people. And sometimes we wonder why, the relationships we've had with people, they don't look the same. Around you moving different now. When I try to do this, when I try to ask you, you don't want to do it. Well, a lot of times it's because you might have burned some bridges down because of your behavior. But if we could understand that we are responsible for our actions and our words, we are responsible for what we do. If we could take responsibility for some of the things that we did, and I'll go ahead and move on to this last banner because it's all wrapped in. Own your behavior, acknowledge it, and take the necessary steps to move on. If we could take responsibility, own it, acknowledge it, take the necessary steps, if we could do those things, it'd be a lot easier to mend some of those burnt bridges and, to mend some of those broken relationships or have better interactions with other people. Your support system might grow. Sometimes we don't have a support system because we've taken advantage of everyone in our lives, and now nobody wants to do anything for you. Why? Because you've taken advantage of them. But if you realize that you're responsible, own it, acknowledge it, and take the necessary steps to move forward, then maybe you gain some of that support back. Or maybe there's just some things that, we have not been doing that we need to do. And we would take responsibility for the fact that, hey, I have not been responsible. I have not been doing what I'm supposed to do. Now I need to get back in it again and take responsibility and just get it done. Then guess what? Then we've got natural consequences for that too. And those could be some positive consequences. So our Wednesday wisdom for this morning, and I thank my Father for this because this will always stick with me. Pray and think before you speak, write, or do anything. Think about it. Pray about it. Like I said, some decisions, it might seem like you have to make it off the cuff. Sometimes it's like, oh, well, they need to answer now. Okay, but at least pause first. Because again, it's not to say that you're always going to make the right decision. Sometimes we don't. And sometimes we have to make a decision, and sometimes we don't choose the right thing. We're going to err. That's normal. But we still it's probably a lot more likely that you'll make a better decision if you take some time to really think about it rather than just acting and reacting and just, let me do this, or I'm just going to go ahead and do this to this person. And then I'm not going to even think about how that might have an effect on someone later. So just a thought, just some wisdom for today. Just sharing what I know helps me. Like I said, it doesn't make us foolproof. Doesn't mean I always make the best decisions, but it definitely does help me to pray and think first before I do anything that I do. It definitely helps. And I can always tell those decisions that I didn't think about first, didn't pray about that. I definitely didn't pray about that because God would not have told me to do that. I can always identify and distinguish the difference. So just some words of wisdom for our Wednesday wisdom this morning. So as we're our tag for Purpose Journey Counseling, we like to share this every time we're together, is to be loving, be kind, be compassionate, and be intentional towards others as well as towards yourselves. I want to go ahead and put this plug out there right now. Our next episode of Hashtag from a Christian, Hashtag from a Therapist with Dr. Natatu, episode 9, the 9th month, will be on Sunday, February 5th, 2023 at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Please join us. Mark your calendars. We've announced it at the last show, but I want to make sure that we're preparing. Just have these dates on our calendars. The first Sunday of the month. So it will be Sunday, February the 5th. That is not Super Bowl Sunday anymore. So we're good. We're good. So that will be our next podcast. So please mark your calendar. So again, we thank you so much for joining us. Lord willing, we will see you on Monday for Monday Message live at 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Let's do some praying and some thinking before we're speaking, writing, or doing anything today and in the days to come. And let's watch how that makes a difference in our lives and what kind of happens as a result of that. So again, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you so very much. Have a wonderful Wednesday and blessings and love.